Hello everyone, I am Storyteller, and I am here to help you today. I know you use this video to fall asleep, so before that, like the video and subscribe to the channel. Also, where are you from and what time you watching? Now comfortable and relax, let's get started. Creepiest experience I have had at work. I'd like to preface this by telling you guys that this is not a fictional story. This happened to me on April 19th. TW man being inappropriate with minors, I work at an arcade or fun center with a ball pit and a bouncy house. Most of our customers are nice people, but there will always be an aberrant few among the crowds, one of which I encountered on my most recent shift. This isn't the first time I had seen this man though. We had first met a few weeks prior. He brought his 11-year-old son and his two friends to the arcade. I was stationed at the bouncy house that day. I thought it was odd that I hadn't seen him before because he had a membership, and I have been working here for almost a year. The three young boys ran into the bouncy house, and the man sat on a bench right next to where I was standing, even though all the others were empty. He didn't look shady or anything. He wore black sweatpants and a gray t-shirt that matched his sneakers. He had short, curly hair and light brown skin that was dusted with freckles. His deep brown eyes seemed to sparkle as he looked up at me and smiled. I grinned and asked how he was doing, and we fell into pleasant conversation easily. He asked me what my name was, and he introduced himself as Donald, fake name. He was kind and charming, and at first I appreciated his company. As we talked about our days, he began to slip details of his life into his sentences. How he loved his sons and thought it was amazing that I was so good with kids. I said that the boys were well-mannered and were a pleasure to have, which is a statement I stand by. He pauses for a few seconds and sighs as he says, "Yeah, but it's hard out here being a single dad." I sympathize with him because my mother was single for a long time after her divorce from my father. She works herself to the bone every day, and I'll never forget everything she does to give us a great life. That is why I didn't find the comment too strange. However, soon after, he became more direct, continuing to emphasize that he was single. He asked if I was in college. I was a bit more firm as I disclosed the fact that I am in high school. He smiled and asked me, "How old do you think I am?" I kept it cool, thinking maybe he was just playing around. I looked at his face for a moment and guessed he was 28 based on the subtle creases in his face and a few strands of gray hair. He wore a boyish grin and laughed as he said, "Nah, I'm 32. I was surprised, and I told him I thought he was younger than that. I was trying to be nice. Another chuckle escaped his lips as he hummed and nodded. He turned away to look at the kids again. After a few seconds, he turned back to face me and asked the question I had been dreading. "How old are you?" His eyes were laced with something I couldn't define, an insidious twinkle that made my heart drop. I had a feeling this was coming, though I didn't want to believe it. I had hoped he was trying to be friendly, but a deep pit had formed in my stomach. Something wasn't right. The flirting was obvious now, and I wasn't sure what to do. "I'm 17, I said curtly. He raised his eyebrows and smirked again. With an eager expression, he asked me when my birthday was. I tried my best to be obtuse, but I tend to worry about coming across as rude. "My birthday is in May," I stammered. I cursed at myself for revealing that fact that I would soon be of legal age, and I was terrified that he saw that as a sign to continue flirting. As he was about to ask me something else, another parent came to ask me a question. Astonishing relief swept through my body as I eagerly stepped away from Donald to speak with the other parent. More people began to trickle into the area, and I made sure to talk to as many other parents as I could to look busy. Around 15 minutes later, most of the parents and kids trickled out again, leaving me isolated with Donald. He scooted from the middle of the bench to be closer to me. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw his eyes trail up and down my body, his gaze falling onto my hand. He seemed to notice the claddagh ring I was wearing. "You married?" You have a boyfriend?" His voice was laced with urgency. I thought I was going to burst into tears right there and then. I was so taken aback by his question that I couldn't even come up with a lie. "No, I'm just working on myself. I'm enjoying being single." I did my best to sound confident, but my voice still shook with apprehension, threatening to break. "Good for you. How old are you again?" He cocked his head like a curious dog. "I'm 17, I said even more firmly. I wanted this man to leave me alone, but I didn't want him to lie about me being rude to him. Kids still remained in the bouncy house, so I couldn't leave the area. That's cool, that's cool. I really respect that, you know? If you ever need to chill and hang out, you can give me your number and you can come to my place." He smiled widely, but his Stygian eyes cut through me like a blade. I nodded vaguely as I stormed away to look at something in the bouncy house. Tears threatened to spill down my face as I tried to steady my breathing. The last threads of my composure were beginning to snap. I took in deep breaths, and as if heaven sent, the kids with Donald ran out of the bouncy house and asked him to go to the ball pit. The boys grabbed their shoes hurriedly and scurried out of the gate as if they were late to an appointment. I faced the exit to watch them leave. As Donald trailed slowly behind the boys, he turned back to face me and said, "See you soon." I turned my back to him as a silent tear slipped down my face. He left shortly afterward. Now that you have context, I'll tell you about what happened on the 19th. I was working at the ball pit that day, and everything had been going smoothly so far, even though I was sick with a fever of 102. I decided to wear a mask to keep others safe, and because the ball pit is equivalent to a Petri dish, I had been kicking stray foam balls away from the gate when the door's sensor chimed. I walked over to look at the front, and I saw Donald's child and his two friends run inside. Donald walked in a second later, and I thought I was going to faint. Unfortunately for me, him and the children came over to the ball pit first. I let them in wordlessly, not even looking at Donald's face. The kids ran inside, and interestingly enough, he didn't say anything to me. He didn't even look at me. I don't think he recognized me with the mask, at least not at first. As his kids played, he sat on one of the benches, playing with his phone. The ball pit was busy at the time, so I felt safer knowing that I was surrounded by other parents. The universe seemed to be vouching for me that day because I got my break about 5 minutes later. I took my break outside. My mother and father called me, insisting that I tell my manager that he is back. I assured them I would and spent the rest of the time finishing an episode of a podcast. After I clocked back in, Donald left the ball pit and I was alone. I decided to spend some time cleaning up the place since I had nothing better to do. I made sure to keep looking behind me though, just in case. I spent some time picking balls up on my hands and knees, and I got up to sweep some more out of the way of the gate. As I walked toward one side of the gate, I saw Ronald walking around with his phone up, very obviously filming. He was alone, and he walked quickly, with purpose. He filmed the front of the ball pit, and his camera started sweeping toward my direction. I turned away quickly, not wanting to be on film. I leaned quietly against a section of the fence, waiting for him to leave. I stayed there for about 30 seconds. When I turned back around, he was still there, less than 2 feet behind me now. He jerked his phone away from my direction and stormed off towards the other section. I hoped he was showing the ball pit to someone over FaceTime, trying to block thoughts of his possible malintent out of my mind. But a question still remained. How long was he filming? My manager was nowhere in sight, so I decided it was best to stay there and monitor everyone that came in or out of the area. Quickly, a family of kind regulars shuffled into the ball pit, a mother and 4 children, between ages 2 and 8. We didn't have that many customers at the time, so I could help them collect the balls and play with them, which eased my anxiety. We played for around 15 minutes, and I got up again to watch the gate. That's when Donald came back once again without his children. His phone was pointed at the ball pit again. He was leaning on the gate right behind me, and his phone was pointed directly at the group of young children. I finally had enough, and I walked up to him, speaking in a sharp, concerned tone. "Sir, please do not film children you don't know." He looked at me blankly and replied, "I'm not. I'm showing my wife, see?" He flashed his phone at me, which showed a woman on the screen. He pulled his phone back towards his chest quickly, but not quick enough to deprive me of the details. The woman's face was completely still, and the camera in the bottom right corner did not show my reflection, even though his phone was pointed right at me. He wasn't on FaceTime with anyone. It was a fucking screenshot. He held his phone tight and practically jogged away, gathering his children and leaving shortly after. My mind raced through a million questions. I thought he was a single father. Did he lie about being single, or did he lie about being married just now? Was he taking pictures or videos of me before? What about the children? These questions stewed in my head as our store neared closing hours. As soon as I saw my manager, I spilled my guts about what happened, throwing in every detail I had about the weird stuff Donald was doing. My manager was horrified and wanted to ban him right there and then. He texted the head manager immediately, but I told him to wait on banning him. The manager was puzzled and asked why I would want to do that. I was honest with him. I told him that I was worried. If Donald gets banned from our establishment the day after I called him out, he's probably going to realize it had something to do with me. I'm scared that he'll be angry. I don't want him to come after me. He doesn't know that much about me, but plenty of people are savvy enough to find out. He nodded silently and said that everything was going to be taken care of. I thanked him and left for the evening. I don't know what's going to happen or how this will be resolved, but I don't think this man should be trusted around children. I never want to see him again, but if I do, I pray to God that we are not alone. Weird yell while hunting. I was around 8 to 9 when this happened, but since have moved away, but I still think about this incident and wonder. My papa, 57 years old when this happened, an avid outdoorsman, grew up hunting and fishing and did it his whole life. Once I was old enough, my papa started to take me hunting and fishing, and I loved it. I clicked with it immediately. From then on, we were always together hunting me by mean papas, side him teaching me along the way, learning how to identify tracks, calls, trees. Needless to say, he knew the area and was well experienced for it. One day we went hunting. The drive felt like it took forever, endless curves and twists of the Tennessee mountains. Makes me sick to even think about that road. Once we finally arrived, it was nothing but trees and gravel. No houses, no street lights, just nature. We walk for around 10 minutes and sit down above an old logging road. After sitting there for a couple hours in complete boredom, we finally see a doe walk down the road. I was shaking, LOL. My papa draws the gun on the deer and takes the shot the deer drops. It was a great moment for us, our first deer together. We take our photos with the deer field, dressed it, and started dragging it back to the truck. As we're dragging it back to the truck, we hear coyotes behind us yelping, very close. My papa urges me to move quicker. Then all of a sudden, the most ungodly screech I yell I've ever heard in my life comes from the bottom of the hill, below us. It instantly struck fear into the younger me. I looked to my papa and noticed his eyes got wider, and I asked Papa, "What was that?" Because he would also teach me the calls of different animals. He said, "Boy, I've never heard that in my life. It's time to go." To this day, I'm not sure what or who made the sound, but seeing my papa worried and not know what was enough for me at the time to be scared shitless. I took a wrong turn and ended up exactly where I needed to be. Some roads feel like they remember you better than people do. We were driving back late, me, my girlfriend asleep next to me, and Havana, our 2.5-year-old dog, curled up on the passenger side like she owned it. The air was cool, the sky was moonless, The kind of night where the world seems to shrink down to just your headlights and your thoughts. The GPS had rerouted us off the main road to avoid traffic. I took the turn without thinking, but once we were a few kilometers in, it started to feel like the road had taken me. There was nothing memorable about it visually. Flat, straight, just trees on either side in the kind of quiet that gets under your skin. But something about it started pressing on a part of me I hadn't felt in a long time. A pressure behind the ribs, a heaviness that wasn't about tiredness. That's when I saw someone up ahead, a man on the side of the road, not waving, not panicked, just standing there, calm. I slowed down, and as the lights caught his face, I nearly forgot to breathe. "Marco?" He smiled. "Hey, Pitar." I pulled over, gravel crunching beneath the tires. Havana perked her ears but didn't growl. Just looked at him like he belonged there. I got out. Marco looked older, like me, but his posture was the same, relaxed but alert. He always had this way of noticing everything without needing to talk about it. I hadn't seen him since we were maybe 11. He was never the loud kind of friend. We didn't climb trees or build forts or throw water balloons at girls. We just talked, in hallways, on slow walks after school. We'd found each other because neither of us liked pretending to be interested in the things everyone else seemed obsessed with. I never played with Lego. He didn't play soccer. We found connection in the quiet places between everything. And this road, this one exactly, was where we used to walk together. After school, before the streetlights came on, it cut behind the newer blocks and curved near an old train yard that doesn't exist anymore. We used to sit on a cracked bench back there and talk about things that felt too big to say out loud anywhere else. Like where we'd be in 20 years, like whether anyone would still remember us, like what it meant to feel invisible even when surrounded by people. And then one day, he was just gone. No explanation, no warning. He didn't move away in the way that kids usually do, with boxes and teary goodbyes. He just disappeared. Empty seat in class. No forwarding address. I asked once, maybe twice, but no one had answers. And I didn't push. I just let him vanish. Now here he was, on this road again, like no time had passed. "I never got to say goodbye," he said. His voice hadn't changed. Still soft, still grounded. He looked toward the road like it was familiar too. "I didn't even know you'd left," I said. "I know," he said, "but you remembered this road. I didn't mean to, but something in you did. You came back when you needed to. That's what this place was always for." I didn't understand what he meant. Not fully, not yet, but he kept going. "You used to talk to me when no one else did. You let me be quiet without making me feel wrong for it. You asked real questions, and when my life was going to hell, you didn't even know it, but you gave me a place to be safe." I looked away. That lump in my throat was back. You helped me carry something I didn't have words for back then. Now I'm here to return the favor. I laughed, not because it was funny, but because I didn't know what to do with the ache in my chest. "I'm fine," I said automatically. "No," he said gently. "You're functional." He looked at me like I'd said something untrue about my own body, like he saw the scaffolding inside me for what it really was. "You've been unraveling slowly for a while," he said. "You show up. You get the work done. You hold conversations. But inside, you're bone-tired, worn down by the pressure to keep it together, and no one sees it. Not the way I do." I didn't answer, because he wasn't wrong. I'd been going through the motions, delivering on expectations, solving problems, nodding along in meetings. But something deeper had been leaking out of me, something I hadn't told anyone about. That feeling like the floor could give out any second. That brittle edge just beneath the surface of every task, every social obligation, every smile. You've convinced everyone you're okay, he said. Even her. He gestured toward the car. But you're not. I felt something hot building behind my eyes. Then he glanced at the passenger seat. She knows, though, he said, nodding at Havana. She's keeping you tethered, every day. You think she's just a good companion, but she's more than that. She pulls you out of the fog, reminds you there's joy and safety, even in tiny moments. I looked at her through the window. She was watching me, tail tapping once, then still, like she understood every word. You've got more strength than you give yourself credit for, he said. But strength isn't the same as not needing help. I don't know what to do, I said quietly. You don't need to do anything tonight. Just feel it. Let yourself stop pretending for once. That's why I'm here. He looked back down the road, and for the first time I realized something. He didn't look like someone visiting. He looked like someone returning home. You came back now because you knew I was close to breaking. He nodded. This was our place. You were most you here, before you learned to hide. I figured maybe if you came back, you'd remember how to come back to yourself. I took a step forward, but he was already backing away. Not vanishing, not disappearing, just walking into the dark, like someone leaving a room that wasn't theirs to stay in. I watched until I couldn't anymore. Then I got into the car. My girlfriend stirred and squeezed my hand, still half asleep. Havana leaned gently against my leg with that quiet, solid love that doesn't ask questions. We drove. The road didn't feel hollow anymore, just quiet, real, steady. I don't know what Marco was. Memory, ghost, guardian. All I know is that I needed him, and somehow he knew exactly where to find me. That's the thing about the right kind of friendship. Even when time and distance tear it from the surface, something underneath remembers. A hidden map, a place. He came back to remind me I'm not alone in this, that I never really was, and that sometimes saving someone doesn't look like a grand act. Sometimes it looks like showing up on the side of the road, right when the silence gets too loud. It came from the fog. Get up, Brennan. This is the third time this month. This was the last thing I heard as an employee of the Bristleton Hotel. And to be fair, I couldn't blame Claire. She was my boss. She was just doing her job, and I clearly wasn't competent enough at mine. When I wasn't cleaning hotel rooms during the day, I was putting up with drunk losers who make triple my salary demanding more shots from the other side of the bar. If you can't tell, that doesn't leave too much room for me to sleep. And the comfortable hotel bedrooms that I definitely couldn't afford to be in during normal circumstances were just too alluring for me to resist sometimes. I drove home early that day in my 2007 Toyota Camry. It wasn't exactly a Ferrari, but it got me from point A to point B, and that's all I really need. Well needed. I doubt I'll be driving to the hotel anymore after I decided that 2 p.m. was nap time. The drive home was like every other, just a few hours earlier than I anticipated. A thick fog coated the area, reminding me of Silent Hill, a reference which makes me feel old for even thinking of. I sat in the car, blasting music with my windows down, tapping the steering wheel to the beat. It was only once the song finished that I realized just how quiet it was. I don't just mean the roads, I mean everything. No singing mockingbirds, no cyclists. Hell, not even any insects blindly smashing into my already filthy windshield. It almost felt like a blessing at first. I slowed down the car, just wanting to enjoy the brief calmness before the storm that I knew was waiting for me back at my place. I pulled over on a dilapidated country road on the route home, getting out of the car. It was my final drive home from the hotel. I might as well take my time and enjoy my victory lap, I thought to myself. I pulled out a creased pack of cigarettes from my coat pocket. I hardly considered myself a smoker, but one every now and again they helped take the edge off. I stared out into the distant fog. It relaxed me at first, but after a while something changed. It started to hurt. like I was looking at something my brain was struggling to understand. I just wanted to toss it up to the damp, discolored cigarette, but something just didn't feel quite right. It was time for me to get back on the road. I didn't know much, but that I did know, a quarter of an hour later, I pulled into my driveway. Good God, I needed to mow the lawn at some point. It was getting close to being legally considered a jungle. As I walked down toward my house, my eyes peered to my right. My neighbor was fast asleep on his porch chair, but I had no idea how he wasn't awoken by my loud-ass car pulling into the driveway. Not that I was complaining, there's only so many of his back in my day rants I can handle before I start feel sleepy myself. After a turn of the key and a few shoulder barges, my door squeaked open. I really needed to get the hinges fixed. Turns out, WD-40 doesn't actually fix everything. I headed to the fridge, hoping for a quick snack. Upon opening, I saw what I thought was some sort of red smoothie. I sure as hell didn't make it, so I assumed my sister made it before heading to school. She was more into the healthy stuff than I was. I had a sip. It tasted absolutely foul, almost metallic. It probably had some sort of health benefit, but I didn't want any part of it, so I put it back where I found it. I browsed LinkedIn for about an hour after that, searching for a day job that paid anything above minimum wage. Just when I thought I was finally getting somewhere, the universe gave me a giant middle finger. My internet connection was gone. At this point, I could only laugh at my own misfortune. I live deep in rural Nevada, and whilst we aren't still living like we are in the Wild West, I'd be lying if I said that the internet connection was perfect. So I wasn't exactly surprised. I took it as a sign and decided to call it a night on the job search. I checked the time, 7:30. Better make some dinner, I thought. I was no chef, but I could make a mean plain boiled pasta, or so I've heard. I filled a pot with a healthy serving of fusilli, as I planned on saving some for my lunch tomorrow. I carried the pot to the other end of my cramped kitchen, gently placing it down in the sink prior to turning the tap on to fill it with water. That's when I noticed something odd. The water, if you could even call it that, had a reddish-brown tint to it. At the time, I was more annoyed than concerned. Not only did I not have any drinking water, but it had also ruined some perfectly good pasta. I'd just call the water company in the morning, I thought. There had probably just been a leak in the pipes or something. I'm not going to pretend that I know anything about water or pipes. I carried the tainted pot into my front yard to scrape it into my already overflowing trash can, successfully managing to prevent any spillage. It was the little victories that counted. Just as I turned around to head back into my house, I noticed that my neighbor's porch light was still on. Mr. Penny probably just forgot to turn it off when he went back inside, I assumed. As I got closer to his house, the situation just got increasingly weirder. Mr. Penny was still sat on his porch chair, seemingly still fast asleep. Concerned, I hurriedly made my way towards my elderly neighbor, which is when I noticed just how deathly pale he was. He was never exactly tanned, but this just looked wrong. Even just the sight of him made me feel queasy. I tried shouting his name, to no avail. Starting to feel a little unsettled, I shook him by his shoulders, causing his head to jolt back. I fell backwards after seeing his neck. I barely had enough strength to catch myself on the porch railing. He had a giant gash on his neck, deep enough to expose his windpipe. I stood there urgently trying to catch my breath. Once I eventually recovered from the initial shock, the confusion set in. Where the hell was all the blood? This was a deep, wide cut, but not a single drop of blood could be seen on, or even around his body. Aside from the beer stains, his white shirt was spotless. It was like he was some sort of wax figure. Every liter, every gallon was gone. His dog sat cold and lifeless on his lap. I didn't know if it had the same fate as its owner, but I didn't have the heart or the balls to check. Before I could even start to think about who did this or how they did this, the porch light flickered and then cut out. shrouding me in the pale, shriveled husk that once was Mr. Penny in complete darkness. Not even the moon shone. Not even it wanted to illuminate this horrific scene. "I'll be honest," I screamed like a little girl. I got up, making a break for the fence separating our properties. I refused to step into the fog on the street, knowing what could still be out there. Using one arm to propel myself, I just about conjured up enough strength to leap over the picket fence with agility that in any other circumstance, I'd be pretty damn impressed with. I made it to my door, which I had idiotically not thought to lock when I left, and repeatedly thrust it into it, scolding myself for being too stingy to not get it fixed sooner. I pushed it open just wide enough for me to slide in sideways, and I wasted no time entering. Thankfully, it shut easier than it opened. I immediately looked for my phone and dialed 911, having to take my time to enter the numbers because of my shaking fingers. My heart dropped further than I already thought it could when my phone flashed up with an error message. No explanation given, just error. The coincidences were just piling up. I fell backwards into my couch. I tried calling my sister. Hell, I tried everyone. Every time I just got the same damn error message. I knew I couldn't stay here. Whoever or whatever did this to my neighbor probably knew I was here. I needed to go. I grabbed my car keys and headed for the front door. Then I remembered when I moved out, my father gifted me a gun. It was nothing fancy, just a Colt 1911, but it was better than nothing. I grabbed it from the drawer in my bedside table. I'd never really used it before, and I was starting to regret not taking my dad's offer up for some training all those years ago. I crept downstairs, not wanting to make too much noise. Luckily, the door opened pretty easily this time, allowing me to sneak over to the car. I didn't even bother shutting the door. There was nothing in there of value anyway. I got in the car, turning the key. Something was wrong. I had no gas. I didn't understand. I had a full tank this morning, and I had only driven 60 miles to the hotel and back. The car wouldn't even start. It's not like I was running on fumes. It was like all the gasoline had just vanished, just like Mr. Penny's blood did, as much as I wanted it to be a coincidence. But the evidence was just piling up. That's when it clicked. I didn't just stumble into a crime scene. Whatever did this, it wasn't gone. It was still here. It was messing with me, like some sick little game. I have been locked in my car for the past 2 hours writing this, hoping somebody will find it. To whoever is reading this, I have one piece of advice. Don't stare into the fog. You don't know what is staring back. I found out what my town really celebrates on Easter Sunday. I fucking hate Easter. And it all goes back to that dirty town. I know what they do there. I know what they are. This is the story of what happened on an Easter Sunday years ago. How I lost my childhood. How I stopped trusting people. And how I learned to hate my father. I had just turned 16, raised by a single dad. Our relationship was strained. He blamed me for my mother's death. She died the day I was born. My birthday had always been her funeral. We didn't celebrate it, not really, and honestly, I didn't care. It all felt hollow, like someone going through the motions just to feel normal. Back then, we lived in a cramped 2-bedroom apartment until my dad finally got a job that paid well enough to upgrade. He bought us a modest but decent house in a quiet little town across the state line. Before I knew it, we were packing boxes and driving through unfamiliar roads on a gray April morning. I watched my old world fade in the rearview mirror, the streets I grew up on disappearing into fog and pine. Somewhere on that long drive, he turned to me and said he wanted to fix things. Start over. Do it right this time. I remember shrugging, eyes still on the window. I'd heard that shit before. When we finally pulled into the town, it looked like something from a postcard. Quaint homes with flower beds, old trees lining the roads, pastel shutters, friendly faces. The kind of place that shouldn't exist anymore. We reached the new house and started unpacking. For the first time in a long while, I felt something like excitement. Maybe there was a chance. Maybe things could get better between us. That night, some neighbors invited my dad to a welcome meeting. Just him. I wasn't invited, but the teenage rebellion in me didn't like being left out. Curiosity pulled me in, and boredom sealed the deal. I snuck out after him, creeping through the dark streets until I found the town hall. The back windows weren't latched. One was cracked just enough for me to hear. Most of it was small talk, boring, polite nonsense. But then I heard something that made me stop. The town, an older man said, his voice calm, smooth and rehearsed, has enjoyed good fortune for a long time. People meet their partners here. Promotions come quickly. The crops are tall and the seasons are kind. I press closer, my breath catching. But when it's unhappy, he continued, we see the opposite. Clouds that don't leave, crops that rot, accidents, death. Everything turns gray. A pause followed. The room seemed to hold its breath. So when we receive new neighbors, the man added, especially someone like yourself, we believe it's important to explain the situation and to understand it's all for the greater good. That was when I heard my father, sobbing, soft and deliberate, like he was trying not to. I'd never heard him cry. I leaned closer to see, but before I could get a look, the talking stopped. The crying stopped. Dead silence. I bolted, ran all the way home through empty streets, adrenaline pounding in my chest. I didn't stop until I was under the covers. When he returned later that night, he wasn't the same. He smiled too much, said too little. He moved like he was wearing his own face like a mask. His eyes were hollow, his jaw clenched, his mouth stretched into a grin that didn't reach anything. Something was off, but I couldn't name it. The next day, he told me about the town's annual Easter egg hunt, said they needed help setting it up. Volunteers usually laid out eggs for the younger kids to find. The hunt took place in the woods just outside of town. He said I should help, asked what I thought. I argued, said it sounded stupid. He pushed back, said it would help me meet people. It's good for the kids, he told me. Sam, come on, get out a little. This could be special. What finally convinced me? A $20 bill. $20 fucking dollars. That's what it took. Not just for me to agree, but for him to offer it. I'd never been handed money by my father directly before. I took it, feeling like I just won something. I was a teenager, hungry for approval and attention, and I took the bait. The week passed in a blur. The townsfolk were welcoming, almost too much so. Adults waved when I walked past. They already knew my name. They asked questions like I'd always belonged there. But the kids, they stared from behind curtains. Some peeked through cracked doors. Others just watched from porches, unmoving. None of them smiled. They looked at me like I was already dead. When Easter morning came, it was drizzling. A thin, steady rain barely touched the ground. My dad sat in his chair by the window, watching it fall. I thought he was asleep, lost in thought, maybe thinking about my mom again. But then he spoke without turning around. Thanks for doing this, Sam. The younger kids will appreciate it. He paused. I heard him swallow. West, I'm proud of you for getting involved, especially after just moving here. Yeah, I said awkwardly. So, what do I need to do? He raised a hand and pointed toward the kitchen. On the counter, a few baskets filled with eggs. Take the trail into the woods. You'll see a tree with a pink ribbon tied around it. That's where the hunt happens. Keep it in that area. All right, I said. Seemed easy enough. I'd always liked being out in nature. It used to calm me. I grabbed the baskets and headed to the door. Just as I stepped outside, he spoke again. softly. "Sam?" I looked back, but he didn't turn. "Happy Easter," I said it back. Then I left. That was the last time I ever heard my father's voice. The rain tapped gently against my coat. Pat, pat, pat. I pulled my hood tighter, mounted my bike, and started toward the woods. Despite the sun's best efforts to pierce the clouds, the town felt still, empty, like it had taken a deep breath and hadn't let it out yet. A ghost town with flowers in the windows. I rode alone, accompanied only by the soft hiss of my tires on wet pavement and the rhythm of the rain. Oddly, it calmed me, and for a moment, I felt good. Maybe the kids would appreciate what I was doing. Maybe this was worth more than the $20 my dad gave me. Maybe they'd stop looking at me like I was some kind of ghost. When I reached the trailhead, I leaned my bike against the post and stepped into the forest. The trail began calmly enough. Rain tapped the leaves overhead, forming a steady rhythm. The scent of wet bark and moss filled the air. Animals chirped and rustled in the distance. Eventually, I came to a tree with a faded pink ribbon tied loosely around its trunk. The knot had long since sagged, the color drained by time and weather. There was barely a trail beyond it, just wild undergrowth. A flicker of unease crept into my mind. Don't get lost. So I started leaving eggs behind me. Some I tucked beneath low branches or under leaves. Others I left visible for the younger kids, or for me if I needed to find my way back. Here and there, I found eggs already scattered, old, faded, forgotten, not hidden particularly well. Maybe no one had ever come back for them. The rain thickened as I moved deeper. The canopy above grew denser, turning the light gray and cold. I flicked on my flashlight, starting to wonder if the kids would even be able to hunt today. That thought was interrupted by a crunch beneath my boot. I looked down. A crumpled Easter basket. Some eggs still inside. Faded. Waterlogged. My breath caught. Why would someone drop a full basket like this? That voice from earlier returned. Because they ran. A sharp jolt of fear hit me. My chest tightened. I lifted the flashlight and slowly scanned the woods. Time to go, I thought. Then, crunch. Snap. Sound of branches bending. Foliage shifting. Something large is moving nearby. I spun toward the sound, flashlight trembling in my grip. The beam flickered, then died. The batteries were fresh. I knew they were. A silhouette emerged, massive, easily the size of a pickup. Its fur rippled in the wind, barely visible through the mist and trees. Two enormous ears twitched upright, rotating in my direction. I took a step back, then lightning cracked through the sky. Brief, blinding, and in that instant, I saw it. A fucking bunny. But wrong. Its teeth jutted out in a sickly yellow, chipped and gnawed. Blood, dried, caked, forgotten, clung to its muzzle like paint. Its eyes bulged, mismatched and wild, bloodshot and twitching. One was glazed over, milky. The other locked onto me. It foamed at the mouth. Its breath came in short, raspy puffs. Crooked whiskers curled like wires off its patchy, rotted fur. Its claws, long and gnarled, dug into the dirt beneath it, flexing and twitching like it was trying to feel the pulse of the ground. It didn't move. It just stared. Then the lightning faded, and I was left in the dark with its silhouette. I ran, screaming, crying, desperate. The storm howled above me, wind ripping through branches. I tripped over roots, slipped on soaked moss, and crashed through low brush. I followed the trail of eggs, praying they'd guide me out. Behind me it moved, thundering, stomping, squealing, a high-pitched, throat-shredding shriek that pierced my eardrums and rattled my skull. I ran, not looking back, not daring to. A few times I swore I felt it, right behind me, breath hot against my neck, ready to grab me by the throat, shake me until I was limp, then tear me apart. I kept running. Branches scraped my arms. The rain blinded me. My lungs felt like they'd split open. I collapsed at the edge of the woods near the trailhead, fell face first into the mud, scrambled onto my back, scooting backward, heart hammering, sobs choking my breath. And then I saw them. Eyes, two of them, watching from the darkness of the trees, unblinking. Then they disappeared. I hauled myself onto my bike, panting, soaking wet, blood running down my knee. I was ready to scream, to warn the town about what lived out there. But then I looked down the street. Almost every house had its lights on. Silhouettes stood in windows, watching, waiting. That was when it clicked. They knew. They all knew. I didn't take the road home. I pedaled into the back streets, then into the woods. I didn't stop until the town was behind me. I ran. It wasn't easy. It never has been. Years passed. Shelters, sidewalks, borrowed beds. I didn't know what to say. Didn't think anyone would believe me. Eventually, luck found me. Grotesque, terrifying luck, which I had to remind myself I wasn't part of that town anymore. I found an okay job, a crummy apartment. I met other kids I met at the shelter who became somewhat friends to keep in touch with. Curiosity got the better of me one night. I looked up my dad on Facebook. He has a new wife, 2 daughters, a big smile on his face. His first daughter? Forgotten. Every Easter, I think about the shriek, about which kid who wasn't lucky enough to escape. I still check the weather in that town, just to see. This morning it was raining, but now, an unexpected burst of sun, not a cloud in the sky. A beautiful day, they say. I fucking hate Easter. My wife is convinced we live in a haunted home. I married my wife 4 years ago, and we finally moved into our dream this year. It is a rustic home that is over 150 years old. It is on very edge of a town, but still walking distance to everything we need. My wife has been convinced that our house has been haunted ever since we moved in. She keeps telling me that she hears voices when she's in the basement. I went down there with a baseball bat in case there was someone hiding down there. A lot of our friends are starting to worry about her mental health as she keeps telling them about the voices that she now hears in every room in the house. I brought her to a doctor, but he couldn't find anything physically wrong with her. I asked a local priest to come out and bless our home, and he agreed. My wife seems so much more relaxed after he left, as she claims the voices have stopped. But she doesn't like to be left alone in the house. I had a business trip that I needed to attend that would mean I was away for the week. I asked my wife to invite one of our friends over to spend the week with her, but she refused. She assured me that she no longer heard the voices. I came home after the trip to find my wife's body hanging from the banister. She had written a simple note saying that the voices wouldn't stop. I quickly rang the police, and they arrived within minutes. All of my friends and family gave me sympathetic looks at the funeral, as they knew how crazy my wife was. After the funeral, my girlfriend helped me remove the hidden speakers as we prepared to start our new life together. My family. I died 8 years ago. It wasn't particularly tragic or unusual, just a car accident. I don't blame the man who hit me. He was speeding because his wife was in labor, and there was black ice on the road. He lost control of the car, and I lost my life. It's not his fault. I know that. I'm not cruel. I am not vengeful. If anything, I'm the opposite. You see, I don't have any family left, and I had lost my few friends around that time. When it was time for my funeral, the only people who came was my boss and the family who killed me. The wife held her newborn daughter close to her chest. I hated my boss, and the cemetery was awfully lonely, so I followed the family home. Lily may as well have been my own flesh and blood. She was sweet and bright and oh so very small. She had trouble sleeping if someone wasn't rocking her crib, and her parents were so tired. After they put her to bed, it was easy for me to rock her crib for her. I didn't get tired. I could help her. As the years passed, Jack and Lori realized that they weren't alone in the house. It didn't take long from there to make a connection between my funeral and when I had showed up. And I'd never been malevolent, so they weren't afraid or angry. They started to burn candles on the anniversary of my death day. They left an empty chair for meals and holidays. I really felt like a member of the family. Someone is trying to force the door. It's Lori's ex. He's obsessive. He's angry. He's going to hurt the family, my family. The thing about ghosts is that the more offerings you get, the stronger you become. You've been enjoying candles, trinkets, and even the occasional food item for the past 5 years. I was strong from that. The knife feels warm in my hand, a shock of heat against the ice of my skin. Lori, Jack, and Lily are my family. I care about them, and they're not gonna join me yet. The man with the red umbrella. If you see the man with the red umbrella, let me know. I've been attempting to track him for years. While I'm positive he's been sighted all over the world, very few people pay him any attention, and even fewer witnesses believe their own stories. What I've learned is this: he only appears in the rain. He is tall and walks with an unhurried stride. He wears a dark overcoat. I wish I could describe him better, but the umbrella he carries is large and slopes downward, hiding his upper face in shadow. You might glimpse a thin-lipped mouth curving upwards at one corner, as if he were slightly amused. He is generous with his umbrella. He always makes room to allow other pedestrians to pass underneath. But if you are walking in the same direction, he will give it an accommodating tilt, an invitation to share. If you accept, he will smile and say nothing as you unconsciously slow to match his relaxed pace. The world will seem less rushed. When I saw him, I was late meeting my fiancée for lunch downtown. She was waiting outside while the man kindly kept her dry. I ducked across the street as the rain suddenly let up. She waved to me. I was looking right at them. Then they were gone. Just gone. I haven't seen her since, nor him, though I've been collecting similar stories. So if you encounter the man with the red umbrella, let me know. Remember, he only appears in the rain. If you accidentally walk beneath his umbrella, don't worry. But if you are still underneath when the rain stops. Got grabbed in my sleep? Similar experiences? So I was asleep at night between the hours of 1 and 3 a.m., and in my dream I was laying with my child in my parents' bed. That house was sold after their divorce when I was 12. IDK while we were there. Anyway, something came from behind me and grabbed my shoulder. Obviously, I wake the fuck up because something just grabbed me. My eyes fly wide open and I'm still as hell. I slowly look over to my shoulder, and it is the only part of me not under the blanket. Ha 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 ha. My shoulder was exposed where I had just been grabbed. I have had realistic dreams before, but holy shit, this one really seemed to bleed into reality. I was kind of pissed BC. My 2-year-old has been seeing things and seemingly being plagued by something, but that's explainable as night terrors. I felt threatened honestly. I have been sleeping on a mat on the floor next to his crib for a month because of this shit, and I was protectively laying next to him in my dreams too. And it was as if this thing was like, I can get you anywhere. Anyone with any similar experiences? My trip to Pripyat. I've always been obsessed with abandoned places, decaying structures, shattered windows, peeling paint. They speak of stories lost to time. That's how I ended up in Pripyat, Ukraine, the ghost city frozen in the wake of the Chernobyl disaster. I told my friends I was going as a dark tourist. They told me I was crazy. I went anyway. I booked a private tour, but when I arrived in Kiev, my guide backed out. Said his wife was sick. Maybe she was. Maybe he was just another local who didn't mess with Pripyat after dark. I shrugged and went solo. I had GPS, a Geiger counter, extra batteries, water, and a GoPro. On the first day, Pripyat was exactly what I'd imagined. Haunting, beautiful, and terrifying. The Ferris wheel towered like a skeleton over rusted bumper cars. I wandered through crumbling schoolrooms, nature claiming chalk-covered floors. I even found old toys scattered in one corner. But something was wrong. The further I went from the city's edge, the quieter it became. Not just quiet, empty. The birds stopped singing. Even my Geiger counter started acting funny. The static hiss would spike randomly, then fall silent. At one point, it beeped wildly for several seconds before abruptly shutting off. I should have left then. Instead, I pressed deeper. I wanted photos of the hospital, the one where the firefighters' gear was discarded after the reactor explosion. That was the goal. That was the trophy. I found it by dusk. The entrance was half buried in debris, and I had to crouch through a broken side door. The air felt heavier there. My flashlight beam danced over rusted beds, shattered vials, and collapsed ceiling panels. I made my way down a corridor, and that's when I heard it. A whisper. I froze. It wasn't the wind. There was no wind in that hospital. The air was still and stale. But I swear I heard a whisper. Male. Desperate. Pomogiti. Help me, I called out, even though every cell in my body screamed not to. Hello? Is someone here? Silence. I turned to leave. That's when I saw the shadow. It was at the end of the hallway. Tall, human-like, but wrong. It moved unnaturally, twitching as if flickering through bad reception. My flashlight hit it and it vanished. I ran. I don't remember how I got out of the building, only that I was sprinting down cracked streets under a dead sky. When I looked back, the hospital door was closed. I hadn't closed it. I didn't stop running until I reached my car. I drove until I hit a main road. I slept in the back seat until sunrise, too shaken to move. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something had followed me. Back in Kiev, I noticed things. My phone would unlock itself. I'd wake up with scratches down my back. I caught glimpses of someone standing in doorways, someone tall, twitching. I moved hotels, it followed. On the flight home, a baby screamed the entire trip, her eyes locked on me the whole time. Now I'm home weeks later, but something came back with me. I see it in reflections, in dreams, in the corners of my vision when I try to sleep. I went to Pripyat chasing ghosts, but one found me instead, and it won't let go.